9. Corey Bernard Moss. 31-year-old Rachel Poole was pregnant when her husband, Army Private Justin Pele Poole, was deployed overseas in 2013. She was 9 months along and preparing to give birth when an intruder interrupted a FaceTime call between her and Justin one day. Rachel recognized the man as the couple's friend, Corey Bernard Moss, and repeatedly screamed his name to Justin. Moss had broken into Rachel's Texas home when nobody was there and waited for her to return. He attacked her with a knife and tackled her to the floor, but the mum-to-be wasn't about to make it easy for the intruder. She fought back as hard as she could, and it's likely the main reason why both she and her baby survived. Moss admitted to attacking Rachel because he owed the couple money after damaging a car he borrowed from them. When he failed to pay the $3,000 in a timely fashion, Rachel contacted his superiors in the military, and they ordered Moss to pay the debt. Instead, he viciously attacked her in her own home and also put her baby's life on the line. The disgraced ex-soldier apologized in court, but many doubted his sincerity, especially since he tried to claim that he didn't know Rachel was pregnant. Moss also seemed to pity himself more than anything, stating that he wanted to leave the military and move to New York, but was struggling financially. He was angry that Rachel expected him to cover the car repairs, even though he was the one who damaged the vehicle. In the end, Moss was found guilty of the stabbing and was consequently sentenced to 30 years in prison. 8. Gavin Smith and Rebecca Walker. Investigators in Elkview, West Virginia, walked in on a real-life horror scene at a local residence in late 2020, where they encountered the remains of 4 people who'd been shot execution-style. The victims were identified as 37-year-old Daniel Dale Long, 39-year-old Risa Mae Saunders, and 2 other family members who were under the age of 18. Police were called to the scene after Risa's father, Timothy, discovered the carnage when he went to the residence to check on the family. He hadn't heard from them in a while and had grown concerned about their well-being. And as if losing 4 loved ones wasn't painful enough, Timothy also has to cope with the fact that his grandson, Gavin Smith, was the top suspect in the quadruple murder. At the time, Smith was dating a girl named Rebecca Walker. Both of the teen's parents disapproved of the relationship and banned the pair from seeing each other. They continued to talk secretly through text messages and video chats, but it wasn't enough for the young couple. Smith tried running away to be with Rebecca several times, but kept getting picked up by the local sheriff's office. They eventually decided that the only way they could be together was by killing some of Smith's family members. On the day of the murders, Smith showed Walker a gun and knife he planned to use during a video call. Walker then told her boyfriend to hurry up and get the killings over with, and at some point, the screen went black, but the call remained active. Smith then returned to the chat after he was done murdering the victims. Law enforcement quickly caught up with the teens, who are likely kicking themselves now for thinking that they would ride off into the sunset together and somehow avoid the consequences for their actions. Walker took a deal and pleaded guilty to 4 counts of accessory to first-degree murder after the fact. She admitted in court that she encouraged Smith to commit the murders. Smith was convicted of all 4 murders and received 3 life sentences as a result. 7. Thomas Scully Powers. Around 20 people were participating in a Zoom conference one day in 2020 when they noticed that one of the participants, 72-year-old Dwight Powers, suddenly went off screen. The senior citizen who was attending the meeting from his home in Amityville, New York, was seen falling and disappearing from view. He could then be heard breathing heavily. One of the Zoom participants called the police, but they didn't know Dwight's address, so it took law enforcement a little longer than usual to figure out where he lived. But eventually, they made it to the man's home. Officers arrived as Dwight's 32-year-old son, Thomas Scully Powers, was attempting to flee the scene. He jumped out of a second-story window and was injured, but he managed to run from the police for the next hour before he was caught. In the meantime, officers discovered Dwight dead and nearly decapitated on the floor, with more than a dozen stab wounds to his neck, back, and torso. The killer had attacked the victim with such force that they repeatedly swapped out the kitchen knife they were using for another one because the blades kept bending. During questioning, Scully Powers allegedly admitted to murdering his father. However, he pleaded not guilty to the charge. Unfortunately, it's unclear where the case currently stands. 6. Zochill ONeill. 61-year-old yoga teacher Maud Steenbeek was Skyping with her brother one evening in 2020 when a man barged into her Melbourne, Australia home and beat her to death. Steenbeek's brother saw the intruder approaching, then heard his sister scream before the call was cut off. He phoned Steenbeek's sons and urged them to hurry over to their mother's house. The woman's son, Adam, arrived less than 2 minutes later. He saw 28-year-old Zochill ONeill standing over the victim's motionless body, rambling nonsensically. Unsure whether his mother was still alive, Adam grabbed a baseball bat and went inside with his dog. The canine dragged ONeill out of the house, and Adam struck him with the bat to incapacitate him while waiting for help to arrive. ONeill lived near Steenbeek, but the two didn't know each other. He had a lengthy history of severe mental health issues and psychiatric hospitalizations. His housemates told police that in the lead-up to the crime, he was manic, experiencing extreme mood swings, and doing strange things like trying to climb into a storm drain. Neighbors noticed ONeill crouching and acting unusual in the street right before the attack. Several people called the police, but unfortunately, officers didn't reach the scene until after the onslaught, when the emergency calls took on a much more urgent tone. ONeill was found not guilty of murder due to mental impairment, which means instead of punishment, he'll receive rehabilitation. He was sent to a hospital for the criminally insane, and there's a possibility that he could see freedom again if his mental health is restored. At his sentencing, his lawyer gushed about how his condition had improved so dramatically that he could be well enough for release in just a year. Thankfully though, the judge scoffed at the suggestion, and many, if not most, are hoping ONeill remains locked up for years to come. 5. Van Brisbane. After noticing that her mother's boyfriend was acting weird in the middle of the night at the family's home in Humboldt, Texas one day in 2022, a young woman named Lauren Yuma FaceTimed her mum and sister in order to voice her concerns. She told them that the man, 60-year-old Van Brisbane, was standing in her room in the dark and was refusing to go away. Her mum, Laurie Young, told Brisbane to leave the room, but then she heard Lauren screaming for help, saying that he had a gun. Afterward, the call ended abruptly. Lauren's mum, who was out of town on a work trip, dialed 911 and Harris County deputies rushed to the scene. They heard screaming and 2 gunshots as they approached the home. Moments later, Brisbane walked outside and said, "Do what you have to do." He also appeared to be pulling up his pants when he exited the residence. Inside the house, deputies found Lauren dead from gunshot wounds. Young told local station KHOU that she didn't understand how or why her boyfriend of 5 years turned on her daughter. Until then, Brisbane had always gotten along well with Lauren and treated her like one of his own children. As a result, he was charged with murder. But because this happened so recently, the case is ongoing and Brisbane has yet to be sentenced for his crimes. 4. Samuel Fortes. A 19-year-old woman was FaceTiming with her boyfriend while walking through Leeds city centre in England in 2019 when a man approached her from behind and attacked her. Luckily though, the girl's boyfriend snapped a screenshot of the suspect right before the woman's phone was smashed and subsequently called the police. He felt helpless since he wasn't there to protect his girlfriend, but the photo would ultimately prove helpful in identifying the suspect. The attack lasted for 15 minutes and left the victim with significant facial and dental injuries, along with some scrapes and bruises. Members of the public found the woman bleeding and partially clothed in the street. She told a police officer that she was in so much pain she thought she was going to die. The victim said that her attacker had asked her for her phone number earlier that evening and she politely declined. During the assault, he punched her in the face and stomped on her, and when she asked him to stop, he smirked and continued brutalizing her. Authorities arrested 27-year-old Portuguese national Samuel Fortes, a known schizophrenic with a lengthy rap sheet. And, in the end, he was found guilty of the attack and received a life sentence with a minimum of 8 years. 3. Emily Acuta. 36-year-old Garrett Wilhelm was on a video call at his Las Vegas home one night in 2021 when his wife, 36-year-old Emily Acuta, shot him to death. While the shooting wasn't captured on camera, the person Jarrell was chatting with overheard the violence and called the police. Acuta dialed 911 and told responding officers that she'd returned home from walking her dog and found her husband dying on the floor with the gun next to him. She suggested that perhaps he accidentally discharged the weapon while cleaning it. However, surveillance and doorbell camera footage from nearby proved that she was lying about walking her dog, and a neighbor told investigators that they heard the couple arguing shortly before the shooting. Other aspects of Acuta's story simply didn't add up with the evidence, and she was subsequently charged with Jarrell's murder. Acuta entered an Alford plea to second-degree murder, which means that she maintains her innocence, but admits that the prosecution most likely has a strong enough case to secure a conviction. She was later sentenced to 10 to 25 years behind bars for the crime. And to this day, Acuta's motives for killing her husband are unclear. 2. Garrett Wilhelm. Christmas Eve will forever mark a day of tragedy for two families after a deadly car accident in Denton County, Texas, claimed one life and ruined another in 2014. 20-year-old Garrett Wilhelm was traveling south on Interstate 35W to go see his parents when he got distracted and failed to notice that traffic had stopped in front of him. His nearly 5,000-pound SUV barreled straight into a much smaller Toyota Camry at full speed. Then Wilhelm's vehicle went up and over the car, which was carrying married couple James and Bethany Modisette, as well as their two kids. Sadly, one of the children didn't make it, and the rest of the family members sustained serious injuries as a result of the crash. While combing the wreck site, police found Wilhelm's iPhone fully intact. The FaceTime app was running, indicating that the young man was likely video chatting and was distracted at the time of the incident. In 2020, after years of court delays, Wilhelm pleaded guilty to second-degree manslaughter as part of a plea deal. He was sentenced to 110 days in county jail, followed by 5 years of probation. He was also ordered to pay $60,000 in restitution to the victims. The judge also granted deferred adjudication, which means that he'll avoid a felony conviction if he complies with the terms of his plea deal. If he fails to comply, he could face the full penalty for the crime, which carries a prison sentence of up to 20 years. At his sentencing hearing, Wilhelm apologized to the Modisette family. He said that he thinks about the victim who lost their life and the impact his actions have had on the surviving family members every single day. He also claimed that he planned to dedicate the rest of his days to saving lives. In a victim impact statement, James Modisette was at a loss for what to say to the man who brought so much suffering to his family. He wrapped up his short speech by stating, "If it weren't for Jesus, I wouldn't be standing here right now looking at you." 1. Joshua Cooper. In November 2022, 911 operators in Bensalem, Pennsylvania, received a call from a concerned mother who said that a young man had shown her daughter a dead body during an Instagram video chat. The mum had overheard the suspect, later identified as Joshua Cooper, stating that he'd killed someone before flipping the camera to show someone's bloody legs and feet. He then asked the young woman to help him dispose of the body. After receiving the disturbing report, officers went to Cooper's home at a local trailer park, where he was seen fleeing from the back of his mobile home. Inside the trailer, they found the lifeless body of a female on the bathroom floor. The victim appeared to have been fatally shot. Cooper reportedly told police that the gun he used was locked in a safe on the property, and he also allegedly claimed that the shooting was an accident. During questioning, he said that the victim came over to watch Netflix that afternoon and got up to use the bathroom. However, after saying this, he stopped talking at his mother's urging, so it's unclear exactly what happened next. Authorities consequently charged Cooper with criminal homicide, possessing instruments of crime, and tampering with evidence. But since this case is so recent, an outcome has yet to be reached. If you forgot to close out a video chat with your co-workers and boss, would you rather be seen doing something embarrassing, like picking your nose, or be overheard complaining about your colleagues? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.